All right. And we're live. Hello, everybody. My name is Becken, and I'm back, and I'm here with Mr. Grim Jim from the channel Grim Jim. Uh, um, I forgot to get my notes up. Hold on. Problem with stuff like this.
But
Uh,
we've been running a streamed game for a couple of years now, and it always goes wrong. So don't worry about it.
Oh, so you get my pain. Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, script for I.G.A.S. There we go. Now I have all of the things that I wanted. All right, like there's a thing that like first of all, like just so that we get this started. Me and a friend of mine, yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yesterday we came up with like a couple of things we did. Well, I've been preparing the script for a week. Oh, sorry, for like 2 or 3 weeks. So I've been keeping this like kind of low key. Now, one of the things that I was wondering, what is your opinion on shields in D&D? Like just shields in general.
I don't think a lot of games model them very well. Like you don't. It depends whether you want to get into the mechanics of it or not. But I feel that there should be more variety, particularly in fifth edition, between different kinds of shields, and very few games treat them the way they were used in real life, like the way the Pavis was used to hide behind and lob crossbow bolts at people, or the way shields would break, things like that. It doesn't tend to come up in a lot of these games. Something more like RuneQuest or something that's a bit more oriented towards realism, I suppose. You might get that kind of thing, but
One of the fun things that you mentioned the Pavish shield you did. And
yeah.
I actually have a better system for this. Well, first of all, I went onto Reddit. Yes, I know Reddit, but yeah, I went onto Reddit and I looked at there's these gatekeeper types that basically are just like, oh, I don't want anything in 5th edition to change because like point 3rd edition was like, in 3rd edition, I think they had like several things, but like combat lasted for hours and hours. I am only familiar with 5th edition. You have to keep in mind. Let me see here. What I did instead is that I basically went through, because what I hate and hate is a big word. First of all, bludgeoning weapons, for example, in my opinion, I'll get to bludgeoning actually later, is first of all, there should be a layer of shield bashing, for example. Like, I believe that in D&D, you should have the capability of shield bashing. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, so I think the reason they've gotten a bit sort of gun shy about that, having you have to get feats or whatever to fight with shields, is because of Dark Sun, where there were weapons like turtle shields that were basically like a buckler with a knife attached. So you got the bonus of having 2 shields, and you could still attack, and your regular armor, which was felt to be kind of unbalancing in a way. So I think that's why they've been a little bit shy of it.
Interesting. Keep in mind, I'm not. One of the things that I want to actually just drop on you is that while I own like 11 books of D&D, I actually have just delved into the DM's guide and what's the word I'm looking for? The DM's guide and the player's handbook. That and the monster manual. Hello, Will. This is my friend Will from America. He is great. Welcome to the first episode you've ever been on in I.G.A.S.
Yes. Sorry I'm late.
Dude, it is A-okay. I'm just glad that you showed up, which is the important part, because nothing else really matters. The only thing that mattered is that you arrived in time. Or not in time, but you arrived.
Well, I expected us to start at 11.
Oh,
And
Right, yeah.
It was just barely before 11. So I thought I was going to be on time, and then I noticed you guys were already here, and I was like, shit.
Oh, it's a-okay. Like, okay, so
We just went a bit early, that's all.
yeah,
That's all right.
Will is one of my okay, so Will essentially here is one of my starring players in my episode in my series called The Fate of Acheron, which is kind of like
Acheron.
The Fate of it's a dark spin on the human it's a dark spin on D&D kind of in a way. Like our real reality it is. Like everything is kind of like sad or depressing in a way, and
like
and
you've got
not
necessarily sad or depressing. If I could jump in and clarify, I think what Eric means is like he put a lot of effort into trying to create like dark anecdotes for things that we experienced in our own human history, and things that are of the darker nature of sentient creatures, and he kind of brings that into the session. So part of the story for various different races, and not just like races, but like there's race, like not only is there prejudice in the story as he's established between other different races like the elves and the dwarves and the gnomes, right, and all that stuff, but there's also actually interracial prejudice between like the black humans and the white humans, but he's kind of flipped the script on it, and so he's trying to use D&D to kind of explore the darker aspects of humanity.
Well, he is from the north, so one would expect a certain degree of dour depression and negativity.
Right. I mean, the Vikings did come from Norway, to be fair, so fair enough.
Well, the Vikings were also a job profession. Anybody could be a Viking.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so one of the things that yeah.
Sorry, not to derail us too far, but I actually was reading up about Vikings. Like I used to be big into Vikings when I was little, but something I didn't know until recently was that there were actually like Muslim Vikings. They actually found like Muslim, or I'm not like Muslim Viking shields. Like they had like
like round.
I forget what it was. They had like shields or other like Viking garments that you would typically find with a Viking, but it would have like verses from the Quran or like just various stuff that was very indicative. Like this guy was clearly Muslim, yet he was a Viking, and one guy was actually buried with a Quran. So
interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was fascinating. I didn't know that.
I mean, eventually the Vikings did. Become,
I mean, there were a lot of.
I'm not going to drop this on you. I think that it is like not like history is nice and all. Also, actually, we are gonna get back to the point. All right, where I was earlier.
Sorry, that was my fault.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Now, first of all, like my new shield, because essentially I have a new shield rule. I do for my new campaign. I do for the Fate of Acheron. Where essentially, like, light shields just give 1 to AC and it requires a dexterity of 13, for example, while you can use a reaction to basically parry or riposte, which I know that the Battle Master already does, but it means that you can, there's a reason to use the light shields, because you get the ability to, like, use it as a way of, like, riposte against your opponent. Medium shields gives you the shield bash ability, depending on the shield, obviously. But also, I was wondering if I should add the Viking shield, because the Viking shield is very interesting. Because if you hit the Viking shield, your sword would essentially get stuck in the shield. So I was wondering if I should bring that into the campaign, but I think that is a bit too broken, because then you would have to make a strength check to be like, "Fucker, stuck." Yeah,
and also you would break the shield down eventually.
Yeah.
I think the way to handle that would be more with flavor. Like, so if someone attacks you and rolls a 1, then it gets stuck in your shield, or at least that's one of the possibilities.
I was going to suggest the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a really interesting question for you in a minute, because me and Mr. William here, we tried to like determine something really interesting yesterday, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I wanna.
Is that the shields, or are you talking about something else?
The dragon thing. Yeah, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. I wanna ask that question because, like, I wanna know like your opinion on it. And then we have heavy shields, which has the ability to brace, which increases your AC by 3. I think is it? No, by 2. Basically. Use your action.
The reasoning
basically...
behind this.
Yeah, sorry, Will, go on.
Oh, sorry, no, it's okay, yeah. the reasoning behind changing any of this at all is just to make shields more viable as an item as opposed to just a piece of armor. Right?
Yeah.
Because in combat, you don't just use a shield like a piece of armor. You use it like a weapon, you know? And so we wanted shields to be more viable in terms of, like, actually do something with your shield. Don't just sit there and, like, use it as armor. Like, that's not the only thing. Especially if you have a buckler, right? Like, the whole point of a buckler is that it's used actively. It's not just a passive piece of armor, right?
Yeah. And there were fencing styles that used heavy metal gauntlets to parry or even catch the opponent's blade.
Absolutely, yeah, you're completely right. And even in dueling, or like when you... Okay, so essentially when we were on the battlefield and you were facing an opponent, even if your hand, you would just grab the sword, because yes, while the sword would dig into, it's that or your life. Many fucking people sacrifice their hand in order to basically get that stab in to kill that person.
Which is, probably where they invented bucklers. It's like,
I
could just get a small one.
Yeah, heavy shields, by the way, require a strength check of a strength of 13 minimum, which I think is fair because they are so huge and so made out of metal most of the time, and they just really cool.
And the heavy shields are supposed to be harder to move around, but like considering how big the shield is, you have partial cover. Like, you know what I mean? Like if you fully on. Oh, I just realized this whole time I've been setting up my lighting. I can actually turn on my camera now. But you can actually sit behind it because it's big, right? It's big AF, right? Like, so we basically set up a scenario where when you're normally just carrying it, you get your +3, but if you actually sacrifice an action to just brace yourself behind it, you're basically fully covered. So,
by the way, all of these, except for the last variant, requires to follow the proficiency, by the way, so essentially if you have proficiency in heavy armor, you get proficiency in a heavy shield, essentially. That way, like, not everybody can use a medium shield.
This kind of makes things easy. Because we wouldn't make it too overcomplicated.
Yeah, and then basically my favorite shield, which is a deployable shield, which anybody can use, by the way, but essentially a deployable shield gives you -10 to movement, while heavy shields give you -5, and essentially what it does is that it is meant to deploy it down to basically a cover like the Pavis shield for crossbowmen. Most of the time, crossbowmen will be the ones that will be using this. You can put this in a bag of holding and it will weigh less, but that's... But if you start carrying it, you will most likely be using both of your hands to carry it, or you will use one. But these are essentially...
and attacking with it isn't going to be super viable.
And it gives you 3/4 cover if you place it down and you hide behind it and you reload it, which I think is fair.
Yeah, that's the...
It's like the kind of thing I want... Like, I'm going to make an enemy basically use these in the future, because that's how I'm going to introduce this.
But
it would be an interesting fight.
The Greeks used wicker shields, and that doesn't sound like a terribly good idea. But they basically used them like the Pavis, and especially on board ships where weight was an issue. And you'd place the big wicker shield in front, and it would either the arrows would stick into it, or they would deflect, or they would be slowed down enough that they wouldn't hurt the people taking cover behind it.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because it would pass through so slowly at that point.
All right. Yeah. I'm now going to ask you a question, and this can be a yes or a no, and I know that you're going to say it's very circumstantial, but I'm going to ask this question, and I want to see if you answer what I think it is. So, do you know all the dragon stats by brain? Genuine question.
Off your head.
Yeah.
No.
Don't have to be specific.
Oh,
okay.
Because, right, look, I have a lot of different games. Right?
He's got too many dragons.
Expecting me to remember the stats of every single monster in every single game.
It's
I don't think that's
likely. Yeah. I was more meaning in Dungeons and Dragons, like the monster manual. Basically, that's why I tried to get the point.
Yeah, I don't use dragons that often. I think they should be saved for something special.
That is what I think as well. That's why I have them very limited in my campaigns in the first place, because like I have this entire like, they used to be so cool, and like but
can I ask what is one of your favorite ways to handle players becoming too powerful?
It depends.
Because at some point, players become so strong that dragons are kind of a casual Tuesday thing. How do you keep a party entertained at that point?
So you can do things like change up tactics. Like even goblins can be a threat if they emerge in a very small tunnel behind you and you can't turn around, right? And they're just constantly backstabbing you while you're trying to get enough space to move around. Things like that,
Sure.
or you know, poisoned weapons, or with big enemies. Right? There's a peculiarity about 5th edition in particular, which I've found. Big bad enemies, boss battles, they're a lot easier than hordes of lesser enemies.
I agree.
Right.
I totally agree. Yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I'm having as you're saying that, I'm suddenly thinking, yeah, that one episode of Asheron we had where we went into the Wendigo cave, and like just after we defeated the devil, suddenly we heard like 100 Wendigos behind us or something.
There was 6. There was 6.
But there was like a bunch of them in the
like
cave behind us, wasn't there? There was just you said there was a lot of them, and we got nervous.
Yeah,
we just finished fighting a bunch.
Yeah,
we were like,
I mean, Llama got like surprise attack and everything. It was really interesting. Anyway, sorry.
Point is, I get very scary to have a lot of enemies.
Yeah, much more so. So if you are having a boss encounter, I think you really have to play up the environment, or give that enemy some kind of extra advantage, or give them some minions on the field as well. Otherwise, what tends to happen is if you've just got one big bad, evil creature that would normally overwhelm, they just group up. They're spamming it with all kinds of debuffs, and it's just it just tends to be disappointing. I think.
I do want to say hi to the person that joined. Hello, Squeaks. It's nice to meet you, and welcome to the stream.
I forgot you're live.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so one of the things that I want to ask you. Okay, so there are in the monster manual, there are 4 types of dragons in the book. Now, essentially, I have done a playtesting thing here to see if a level 20 player can defeat a adult black dragon. That's the type of dragon that doesn't get any like special breath attacks. It only gets acid breath, essentially. I mean, we all know that the ancient red dragons are the most powerful dragons in the book. In damage scales, I think. That's all I know. Now, essentially, I said in a backstory of his, when he used to be alive, I can't put too much on this. I need to keep this a bit secret. But essentially, he killed an adult black dragon when he used to be level 20. So
as a level 20, he's soloed a black dragon. Yeah,
genuine question. Do you think that a level 20 character can defeat an adult a paladin, can defeat an adult dragon?
Like, do you think that was a reasonable thing for them to be able to defeat it one-on-one?
I mean, it sounds right. Yeah, the whole
level 20
George and the Dragon. Level 20, you're verging on demigodhood, kind of in terms of power and so on. I mean, the challenge ratings don't work in 5th edition.
Right. Oh, they pissed me off so much. Oh.
So there used to be this great site called D&D Combat where you could run, automatically through combat encounters between different monsters or different characters and different monsters. Unfortunately, the site's defunct now. But I was using that to try and figure out how to scale encounters for my regular stream game. And you need to go way over to present a threat in a single encounter, because they seem to assume that you're doing like 5 medium encounters in a maybe an adventure arc, not necessarily a session, but before characters get a chance to rest and heal or whatever. If you're running a stream game and you've got a 2, 3, 4 hour window, you want one big encounter realistically, and so the challenge ratings just don't work.
Based on that makes sense, because they're a little too rigid in the way that they're designed, I feel like. In terms of the gameplay that they anticipate from players, they're not anticipating something more varied.
I agree. I mean, I'm very Yeah, I think about this stuff all the time. I mean, being a DM is okay. Can we all agree that Dungeons and Dragons is the hardest game to learn? Like, it's probably the hardest
I would say
game ever made, for sure.
Honestly, I would actually say it is one of the easiest games to learn with the largest, I don't know if I would say skill gap, but like it's got like the largest learning curve. It's like a learning like horizon almost, not even a curve, you know? Like
Yeah,
there's
there's
so much to know.
So many exceptions and interactions, and then the makeup of the party will change whether something's more or less effective, and so on. So it's more art than science, I think.
Yeah,
but there are much more
not
complicated
house rules and
there are much more complicated games out there.
Yeah,
I think it's got like as long as you have the right mindset for the game, getting into the game is super easy. Like I could create a one shot for literal 5-year-olds, right? Like I could create a one shot that literal 5-year-olds could play, but it would be like bare bones as fuck. Or you can create something super extravagant, like what Eric's trying to do with Asheron.
I mean, the basics is just addition and subtraction. Really.
I mean,
it's basically just math.
Yeah,
math and like the game you played outside as kids, where you're like, I shot you. No, you didn't shoot me. I had a barrier, I had a shield. Right? It's basically that, but with numbers, so that you naturally know whether or not you had a shield.
I'm gonna get to the comments in a minute, but like one of the things that is really fucking cool to me is how challenging. Okay, one of the things that I'm trying to do with the Asheron is that I'm trying to make it a role play over player. I don't want to I mean, don't get me wrong. I want to kill my players, but I want to kill them constructively. You know, I don't like.
Not just for a bullshit reason. It wants to be. Eric, as far as I understand, Eric likes it to be meaningful when a character dies, or at the very least, there was a good reason.
You want it to be
if you're being.
You want it to be challenging but not unfair, right? That's the sweet spot.
Yes, yeah. I mean, unfair I can be at times because the fate of Asheron. Eventually, somebody will have to run away. That's just a fact. And
if we get too cocky, we will die.
Yeah, because they almost died on the first battle that they did. Like, they
almost
one
died
player
3
standing
times and gotten away with miracles.
Yeah, you guys are like, no offense, but like, you guys did some stupid shit in the first episode.
To be fair, you did kind of plot MacGuffin Dub's like power up thing that helped him survive. He was stuck blocking the doorway, and there were a bunch of Wendigos preventing him from going any further in, and so we couldn't help him because he's blocking the doorway, and he gets struck down, and Eric's like, you receive a divine message from your god, and you instantly succeed in your death saving throw, and he's on death's door, but he manages to get up and get out of the way, so he kind of plot MacGuffin that one in.
Yeah,
but still,
but I thought it was fair because Dub like explained to me that like, I want my god to be. So I basically said to him, okay,
this is like a plan thing. Yeah, to be fair, like Dub and Eric planned something like that ahead of time. It was just something that like Eric was keeping in his back pocket, and like at the time of need, Eric's like, okay, now your thing happens. Yeah, it was like a dire moment.
I loved it so much. It was such a cool moment because basically his god reaches her hand down and grabs him because like his god is a goddess.
I don't feel like we need to. We don't need to go too much into the
campaign.
I know we get excited.
If I start talking about it, I will not stop. Okay, so let's go to this.
We have a little too much fun with our stories. And our,
Well,
that's fine. It's why we play.
It's what we are.
Yeah,
exactly. It's why we're here playing D&D.
So first of all, I will get to one thing in a minute, but I want to read this. Okay, so Grim, you're gonna be busy today, dude. One guy says in the comment section, and then another guy says, "Lol, D&D is the hardest game to learn. Oh, gentle child, try Cyborg Commando." He said to me. I don't know what Cyborg Commando is, but I want to learn it now.
It's a notoriously bad game from the 80s that was written by I.G.A.S.
Oh yeah! I actually tried to message Luke about it.
Speaking of older hard games, anybody play Ninja Gaiden on like the Xbox back in the day?
I watched a friend play it. That was frustrating enough.
Dude, yeah. Oh my god, the game was so hard. Like, like Dark Souls games. Bitch, have you tried Ninja Gaiden?
I mean, Dark Souls is hard to learn, but it's mostly
They are hard
repetitive,
games,
where you like repeat stuff. But let's not get into that.
once you get it down, once you got the mechanics, Dark Souls pretty easy. Like once you're good at it, but Ninja Gaiden's just unfair.
I got a very important question to ask you, Grim, and I've been waiting to ask this question to you. Genuinely, I have. By the way, yeah. But essentially, I got a question for you. Okay, so I am struggling to find points because I go by milestones instead of XP because I actually like my players, and
Although some of us would wish that we just leveled up every like session. Some of us are like,
Yeah,
can we level up now?
Yeah,
Can we level up now?
Yeah, absolutely.
We jumped 5 levels after that one like fight with all the zombies. So
Yeah,
I think we're fine
because because the fucking
anyway, so you were
yeah
you were so Eric's asking like what's your preferred method of like leveling if you were to use a milestone system? How would you do it?
No. No. I would have corrected.
I misinterpreted.
Because
correct
first
me.
of all,
Sorry, I misinterpreted your own
how
question.
often should I level up the players? And I have so much content in this world. There is 12 to 13 nations there are, and they can go and explore any nation they want. But I wanted to... I'm not sure I should even allow them to explore every single nation. So I'm wondering, how often should I even level them up?
I would. So I think milestones are better, but like the sweet spot for D&D, and this has been true of almost every edition, is levels 1 to 6. Right? That's where it plays the best, where you have the widest array of monsters that you can throw at them and have them still be a challenge or, still genuinely be a threat and so on. After that, it does get progressively more difficult to balance encounters and things. So,
and when you're saying balancing encounters, what's the primary reason for that being difficult?
Because once you get to those higher levels and they have even more different combinations of powers, even more different combinations of spells, it becomes much more unpredictable how an encounter is going to go. So if they had a particular spell loadout last session and they easily dealt with something, but they have a different spell loadout this session and they come up against exactly the same encounter, they might get nearly wiped out. So, right. I mean, that's difficult in 5th edition anyway. It's very much easy mode. A lot of the time, as we were saying earlier, it's difficult to create really challenging encounters.
Right, just based on the enemies themselves. Yeah.
I agree.
So
I personally, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just to say that, just don't do it too quickly. Key moments in the story, or moments of heroism, or clawing back from the edge of defeat. Those kind of times are the best ones to have a level up. Or if you get a big bunch of downtime in a city somewhere that they can train, they can hone their skills, they can visit guilds or whatever. That's another time when maybe you want to do it. But I wouldn't do it too quickly.
Right.
I agree. I need to ask a question because it's been fucking triggering triggering me so much.
Real quick before we change topics.
Yeah.
One of the things that I don't know if I'd say I'm pressing Eric on, but like one of the things I encourage him to balance with our game is when players make accomplishments, if they don't feel rewarded from it, it can be kind of discouraging, especially for some of our players that are because Eric's running Asheron in 2 different sets, right? He's running one set with the North American group and one set with the European group. And the North American group has three kids in it, 15 years old. They're all about 15. The rest of us are all in our 20s. But they're less driven by the story in and of itself. They're much more there for the game itself. And so one of the struggles, and I imagine a lot of DMs run across this with a lot of different parties. I've had other groups in the past that also were kind of like this, where they're less like they're there for the role play to some extent, but they're more there to roll dice and see some shit happen. And when at the end of the campaign they don't get levels up or they don't get any items, it can become discouraging, and they're less inclined to I guess maybe be proactive or engage in interesting ways because they're feeling that when you lose interest when you're not feeling rewarded for your actions. And so one of the things I'm kind of wondering is what can we do instead of just making our characters more powerful, instead of going, okay, you beat the boss, level up, right? Maybe instead being like, what are more interesting things that we can do than just throwing more magic items at them, throwing more levels at them.
So treasure doesn't have to be magic items.
Right.
Magic items feel like more of a reward the stingier you are with them, unless your world
if you're
is
a loot
just
goblin.
awash with them. Yeah. Some worlds have a lot of magitech in them, like Iron Kingdoms, or I can never remember the name of the kind of Magipunk setting that's the official D&D one. For some reason, its name will not stick in my head. And I wrote City of Stormreach for it, so I should remember. Well, never mind. Anyway, those ones you'll have lots of magic around, right? It's part of life, right? And it's only really the legendary artifacts that really mean anything there. But okay, they're kids. They probably play video games. They probably play Dark Souls games. They'll sit and they'll grind 12 hours to buff up one of their stats, so they have a slightly better chance of beating a bad guy. Right, but you've got it. The important part is the sense of accomplishment, I think. Rather than necessarily the exact reward that they get.
That dopamine system, right? You do a thing, you get a reward. Yeah.
I mean, I think
that's something. Yeah.
Personally, I'm not a huge fan of class and level systems. I prefer skill-based systems, where you don't level up your character, you level up your skills, and you improve your character piecemeal. But I think one of the big reasons for the long-term success of D&D is, like you say, that dopamine hit when you go up a level. It's a constant reward system. You've always got something to be working towards, something tangible that you can work towards. But there are other things you can do, like, okay, so what if they defeat all the creatures in this abandoned castle and its dungeon or whatever, and the ruler of the land grants them that parcel of land?
Right.
Okay, great. We now own land. We're landowners. We're landed gentry. Maybe one of them gets a title or something. But now you've got this castle which needs to be repaired.
To take care of.
Yeah, it needs to be repaired, fixed up. You need to patrol the borders. Serfs move in. They're growing food, but are you going to take taxes off them? Are you going to be benevolent?
So now the reward you've got also is a new problem to tackle. I like
that. Absolutely.
And it constantly builds on itself, and it encourages player investment in that area of the game. They've got something that they need to defend, not just something they strap on their back and use to kill monsters. Right?
That makes sense. And actually, suddenly, and now I'm thinking it'd be a really great idea, Eric, if, like, for example, if we needed to try and, or just if we needed to, we could very easily try and convince the party to try and form a guild, and then have everybody try to like if we needed to and we wanted people to like start running off on their own, we could just like do something like that where, like, okay, you have a various guild requests, you all head out on your own individual quests to, like let's say we get to level 15 or whatever, and you're trying to figure out how to get us to do something interesting. You could have us all follow a different adventurer party, right, under the guise of like we're helping out newbies, and then we end up on some sort of convoluted quest where we all end up at the same place anyways or something.
I do actually want to stop you, Will, here, because, like, okay, T-shirt of the Historian has posted a couple of comments. I actually want to just read these out. Find things, and it's relative to what you were saying. Find things they can use more creatively. Reward more opportunities to think creatively outside of the character sheets, right? And then he posted, instead of more damage dealing magic items, give them stuff that is fun and not immediately useful. Fair enough. And then he posted again, I had a group that were hired to clear a brewery of goblins that had taken over it. Afterwards, the PCs were offered partial ownership in that brewery, and of course, free beer.
Oh, nice.
I allowed...
Is their brewery.
it allowed me to create adventures based on the needs of the brewery as well as the bog standard adventures. I think that's
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, yeah, establishing like, okay, you own this now. Now you got to go take care of this problem. Oh, look, your supply chain's been held up by an orc raiding party. You got to go defeat those orcs and get your supply back. You got to get your beer back. You know, or something.
Yeah,
I like that.
I do want to ask. Okay, so now we're gonna get onto the questions, which I have written down. Yeah. What is your favorite?
That was a great suggestion. I like. Sorry, just to cover that. Your explanation with like now you own the castle and you got. I like that. I've never actually considered that before. I like
considered
that.
it, but because I've actually read the DM's.
Oh, okay, yeah. I'm a plebeian player.
Well, way back when, that used to be just what happened with characters.
That was like the standard.
It was what was expected in older forms of D&D. That used to be kind of the thing that was good about fighters, was that they would gain a title and land and retainers. And so, you know, your knight character could go out on the quest, but he would bring maybe a monk from his castle, a squire, a couple of militiamen along. And, you know, you push them ahead to trigger the traps. You know, that's...
Right, gotcha. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah, cannon fodder.
Yeah, I love that, absolutely. Okay, so I want to now get into the first question, which I actually had written down. I didn't have the rest of this written down.
You did have quite a few written down. But before you do that, I'm going to derail you, Eric. Sorry.
Again.
Yep, that's it. Eric and I both suffer terribly from ADHD. It's a problem. But it's also, we feed off of each other. So it's, you know, it can be kind of great. But so to derail once again, and this time I know I'm derailing, how do you handle evil characters? Especially in particular when, like, for example, if you have one or two, when your evil characters are the minority in a primarily good group or neutral group.
So the best way to handle that is to have an enemy that unites them, right?
A common enemy.
Yeah, I mean, if you look to Lord of the Rings, for example, yeah, everyone knows Saruman wasn't exactly on the same side as the rest of the evil forces. He had his own plans. He was breeding a superior form of orc. Yeah, he had his eye on the long game. Right?
Right.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Hold on, I'm missing it. Eric's laughing about something.
So evil characters can work towards the same aim as good characters, provided there is a reason for them to do it. I mean, amoral characters will just join in for the money, right? Or for the loot, you know, their share of whatever it is.
Or maybe they're just like nuts for fighting, and that's the only reason.
Yeah. Berserkers or whatever. Or if they're religious characters like cleric or a paladin, maybe their god just instructs them. Yeah,
I'm just here to fulfill my god's request. That kind of
thing. Go along with these guys. You know, help them out. Don't worry about the details. Yeah, it's all part of a greater plan. Whatever. Right. They might go along with it.
Yeah.
I mean, so in reality, I would say I'm more of a moral relativist, right? I don't think there's necessarily such a thing as good or evil. There are context always matters,
right?
But
evil for me, evil is typically falls under the category of like, was there malevolent intent, right? Like,
yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say, like, typically you would consider murder to be wrong, but if you're killing someone to defend yourself, then that's an entirely different story.
Yeah,
but if you're just killing someone because you want them to die, you know what I mean, for malevolent purposes, for malicious motivations, then I would consider it evil.
That's why in the real legal system we have mens rea, which is, you know, the mind behind it, and actus rei, which is the act. Yeah, and there's a difference there. So yeah, you're right. But in most fantasy worlds, we're not talking in the abstract. Good and evil, law and chaos, these are moral, objective absolutes that exist outside of the context. Typically. So typically in D&D and in a lot of other fantasy worlds. So that gets a bit more complicated.
Yeah. And I guess I'm talking more about, because it, excuse me. In terms of like abstract campaigns where you have less, because some campaigns are very linear, where you have a clear goal and there's a clear path, and you're walking down that path, right? And I can see where it'd be very easy to assign a common enemy for characters of multiple alignments. But what about campaigns where the overall objective is loose? Right. For example, in Acheron, we have a rough idea that eventually we may have to go take on this dark god that's been causing problems for a while, but that's not clear to our characters.
Yeah.
When we would do that, why would we do that? None of that's clear. It's kind of been hinted at that this god's been causing problems, and as players, we have that impression, but our characters don't even have any interest right now. It's a pretty aimless campaign. We're just kind of going around solving problems, encountering problems, and then solving them. How would you address an evil character in that scenario? And just kind of start with, I would say, it doesn't necessarily have to be a character who's like super evil. You could just be like kind of evil. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to be like the most evil, but like, you know.
Well, so going around and doing stuff, getting treasure and rewards. Yeah, that's a pretty good hook. That's why it's been around nearly 50 years. So that works to a large extent. I also think in D&D, your alignment is typically made up of two parts. So you might be lawful evil or chaotic good. So there will be more crossover between even evil characters and good characters than necessarily you might expect. And so both a chaotic evil and a chaotic good character might both resent authority and hate authoritarianism. So if there is an oppressive king, they're both going
of them
to
would be down to overthrow the king.
Exactly. So
one of them wants to do it for the well-being of the people, and the other one just wants to kill the king.
Yeah, and then on a meta level, outside of that, players, there's a certain amount of responsibility on the players not to be dicks and to derail the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if I basically say that, these guys are creating a nuclear bomb, the party will do everything in their power to fucking make that nuclear... Like, it's kind of like...
I think, I also advised our younger players not to play evil characters. I can't remember. Somebody
Llama
thought they were going to play an evil character.
Llama.
Was it Llama?
It was Llama.
I remember he wanted to play Sorcerer, but I don't remember if he was going to be
Warlock.
evil.
He wanted to play a Warlock.
Oh, was it a Warlock? Yeah, like a neutral evil Warlock. And I advised him against it because not only is Llama not the role-playing type. I mean, he can role-play in some instance, but he's more of an introvert, and he's less... Like, if he's not super comfortable with his setting, he's quieter, right? He can do the role play when he's more comfortable. And so I told him, I was like, you know what? To start out with, I don't recommend an evil character if you're not super fluent with how to creatively change your motivations and how to think on the fly and just kind of make shit up, by the seat of your pants. It's really hard to play an evil character that doesn't just leave the party and fuck off and do their own thing.
Yeah, that's what. Oh,
the other way to go, and I made this the last bit of this answer, so you can actually move on to your written questions.
Oh yeah, sorry, because I just derailed. Yeah.
So the last way you can deal with this is just don't worry about alignments, except when it comes to extraplanar creatures. So like the Fae are inherently chaotic. Yeah, demons are inherently evil, angels are inherently good or lawful, or Modrons are more lawful. Just leave it to that kind of spiritual plane and let characters just do what they're going to do and figure it out later.
Don't be too strict about it.
I understand. That's funny to think about. I do apologize for the questions that I'm going to ask is not that important. I love that you guys... that you guys just chat about this. I love this. I love this thing. It's amazing. Now to the first question that I actually had written down. I mean, I had the shield one written down because I was actually really curious about that. But
we were literally making this stuff up yesterday. This was like a conversation we were having last night. Yeah. He probably decided to bring that up with you like literally this morning.
Yeah. What is your favorite race in D&D? This is for both of you, but let's start with you, Graham.
Oh yeah.
You mean species?
Doesn't fucking matter.
Species.
I know that you were gonna say that. I was going to say /species, but fuck.
Humans, because they're adaptable.
Which of the?
Sorry.
Oh, interesting.
Humans, because they're adaptable.
Ah,
Interesting.
Oh, fair enough.
I wasn't even thinking from that perspective. I was just thinking aesthetically when he asked me. He's like, "What's your favorite race?" I'm like, "I don't know, elves or something. I don't know." I was like, "I don't know." I'm not partial to anything.
I have two favorite races in D&D. One is because I've been influenced by other things like The Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, and other things like that, and that is the dwarves. I am Durin's folk until the end.
Eric feels pretty
easily.
Eric relates to the dwarves.
But my favorite made species in D&D is the Leonin, for sure. I love the Leonin. I actually want to create like a gigantic paladin Leonin that used to be a king, and he fell down from grace, and he was like forced to leave his kingdom or something. I'd love to make that in the future. That would be amazing.
Because realistically, he should just kind of sit back and let his wives fight.
Fuck.
Oh god. Like a pride of lions. That's funny.
Yeah.
That is a really good pun. I like that. That is great. Okay, what is your favorite class, may I ask?
Would you say that he takes pride in his wives? Sorry, that's a bad pun. That's a bad pun.
I tend to multi-class, so I tend to combine whatever the rogue class is in a particular game that I'm playing, if there is one, with fighter, because I like the adaptability of the rogue, but if you go pure rogue, I don't think it stands up to punishment too well. So I like to be able for my character to handle themselves in a fight to a degree. So I throw in a few levels of fighter.
Yeah, fair enough. I actually... Okay, there's a question here that I like. What even... I think I know the answer, but I want to know. What is the worst class in D&D? What do you think is the worst class?
It shouldn't be. Well,
no, I know.
What definition of worst?
I don't know. You can follow the memes.
Okay. I hate bards.
Oh,
right?
Yes!
They're not bards, right? And rangers are shit, and they shouldn't be.
No, I love Aragon. You know Aragon? He's a ranger. People forget that all the time when they think about fantasy rangers. He's a ranger. It pisses me off.
By bards not being bards, I mean, right? Bards comes from a very long tradition in Celtic culture, Nordic culture. The Skald.
Yes, absolutely.
It shouldn't be about magic to me. They should be basically social rogues. That's the way I see it.
That's a brilliant idea, in my opinion.
So they should be able to get you discounts when you're buying gear. They should be able to wheedle and charm and distract, like Bilbo with the trolls, for example. He's acting like a bard then, really. With his rhyming and tricking them and all the rest, and with the riddle competition with Smeagol as well. These are the bard type tropes that I think of, not magic. We don't need another magic using class.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I love the Artificer, but like my favorite class. Oh, it's the worst.
Real quick
class...
on the topic of rangers, Eric.
Yeah.
On the topic of rangers and Aragorn, T-shirt of Historian is saying that Castles and Crusaders Ranger is the most Aragon Ranger of all Rangers, and he says you should take a look.
I am definitively
as far as
sorry,
or as far as bards are concerned, I agree with what you're saying, but I also disagree just out of personal preference. I think because I like the idea of casting magic with music. I think that's a cool thing, right? Like, I like the idea of that in general.
But I feel like it should be...
While I agree, I like the aspect of a bard being more tailored towards being as you said, kind of a scout who is proficient in, solving riddles, in engaging socially, in being persuasive. I don't think it would necessarily... I think a bard class without the magic would either just be a smooth talking rogue or an NPC. Without the magic, it's hard to make them relevant without it. I feel like
you're probably too young for the analogy, but I would say they should be like Face from the A-Team. Constantly,
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Interesting.
So making deals, sourcing stuff, finding things, still able to hold up a little bit, but just if you're gonna make
mostly plot-based stuff, though, right? That's what I mean by an NPC. Like most of the stuff that they come up with that they end up doing, like for example, I'm trying to think. It's been so long since I've seen the A-Team.
Yeah.
Like so long. Oh god. But okay, like so I can't come up with an example for Face off the top of my head, but like a lot of stuff that would happen in terms of like, you gain something from being charismatic or from being resourceful. That's stuff that the DM has to provide, right? Players can't be resourceful without a resourceful DM. And that's what I mean by like, either they're just a silver-tongued rogue, or they're an NPC, because at that point a rogue's purpose is just as a plot piece. So I'm saying, from the perspective of a player, if you want to be a character that is good at something, just being good at talking is not attractive to characters unless the DM is.
I get what Will is saying.
Yeah, I mean, like again, like I totally get, like, and I agree, but at the same time, if the bard did not have magic, it wouldn't be played. No one would play bard, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, in D&D it's difficult because it is very much a combat oriented game, and there aren't as many opportunities to specialize as there were in earlier editions, like third, where you could really dump all your points into particular skills and be really good at those if you wanted to play a charismatic character. So,
well, and also I think partially, like I think it's a communism scenario where like bards could be really good at just being the silver tongue, the plot piece, if you had a player that you trusted to be your kind of DM's aid. Like, for example, that's kind of what I am for Eric. Like, he and I discuss player elements and plan elements for the game ahead of time, and I'm the only player that's really in on what's about to happen ahead of time, mostly in terms of brainstorming, right? But I'm there for brainstorming, and I'm also there to kind of help guide the party, right? I'm the compass player.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily the main character, but I'm kind of like the guide, the bumpers to the team. If you have a player like that, the bard is a great role for that, magic or no, right? Whether or not you give the bard magic or not, I think it's based off of, one, the DM, and two, the players. It's up to how creative the group as a whole can be, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the other aspect that is a bit more practical when your characters are in the field, perhaps, is that the bard character can be a repository of lore. So they're good at history. They know lots about lots of religions, just not their particular god. They know a lot about nature. They're always reading. In some medieval societies, some D&D settings, being literate. Is a big thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, I do really think it is up to like the creativity, ultimately the creativity of the party.
Yeah.
And the DM as a whole.
It's a personal taste thing, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
I think in terms of like things that like bards are notorious for doing that people hate, right? Like in my impression, like one of the things that bards are notorious for is just fucking everything, right? Just seduce the dragon, right? Like I think that's inherently a DM thing, right? Like if you don't want the bard to do that, just tell them they can't. Just be like, sorry, you fail, right? Like, stop letting them get away with it.
You fail. You get a nat 20, you fail. I don't care. Yeah, don't let him do it.
I don't mind that so much. You want to try something, fine, you can try it. We'll see what happens.
And if it's reasonable,
for me, it's a thematic thing. I don't like bards being able to cast magic. It just doesn't feel right.
Do you want to know what my least favorite class is? And this is a hot take, but I want to share this. My least favorite class is the sorcerer. That's yeah, I know. I love the wizard, but I hate the sorcerer because, Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, I understand playing a pompous character that essentially has everything given to them versus that. And
well, sometimes it's more about being like a like a lot of the sorcerer images that I get are like broody characters that usually have like I suppose that's also warlocks with like a tragic backstory, but
yeah, but this like one of my favorite.
They're usually edgy.
Yeah, one of my
very
favorite
anime.
One of my favorite things in D&D is the Wild Magic Search table. I don't know if you've ever delved into that, but that is such a fun thing. And I have like this variant rule when it comes to weather and stuff like that, but it's not important. And like that builds off of the sorcerer, which I really appreciate, but I don't really see the appeal in playing as a sorcerer. I never will. I just don't like it.
As opposed to any other magic character.
Yeah, that's the thing, yeah.
So it used to be that the wizard was much more restrictive because it was even more firmly rooted in Vancian magic. You cast the spell and it's gone, right? Until you study up and rememorize it. And so the sorcerer had appeal because the sorcerer was a lot more flexible. You might have less spells, you might have a smaller pool to draw on, but you could freely choose what you were going to cast from moment to moment. So it felt much more like a freewheeling sort of wizard in the way you might see one in newer fiction or other games. So for a lot of people,
more of a battle caster as opposed to like a full caster. Yeah.
So for a lot of people, that was the appeal. That it was flexible, that you weren't stuck, that there was less bookkeeping to do, juggling your spell cards and whatever. So that's
the spell book that you keep around with you that you write down your spells in. Well, not just write down, you need to like memorize. I'm still trying to understand the wizard, but I love the wizard. It's one of my favorite classes, for sure. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I hate it when I interrupt people. Now I'm gonna ask you, okay, so yeah, also by the way, I think that the Ranger is massively, so I'm actually going to answer this question first. Like, I would have asked you what is your favorite subclass. I'll get to this in a minute, but my favorite subclass, like, over anything else is the Gloomstalker. I am in love with the You basically turn into Batman, yeah. It's just so cool, and that's my favorite, like, subclass in all of D&D. Like,
we told our Ranger, hey, do you want to be a Gloomstalker? Do you want to be Batman? And he's like, nah, I'm gonna do something else. And we're like, damn it.
Yeah, I got somebody to play it, but he never showed up, and it pisses me off because the Gloomstalker is so cool. Anyway, yeah, what is your favorite subclass?
You will never be Batman.
I'm just going to be boring. I just like a straightforward thief under rogue.
You know what? Fair enough. What is your least favorite? This is how I should have prefaced it. Least favorite class.
Well,
that's how I should have done. But least favorite.
See, I always run the games, so I don't really get to play.
Yeah.
Oh, you're the forever DM. No.
Yeah. You
should do what Eric does. He plays along with us. He has a character that he kind of plays from a passive ignorant standpoint. So his character is just kind of there.
You can't do that.
Why not?
It's too tempting to interfere. You got to be like the Beyonder. You have to watch and not.
He does complain about that.
I mean, I have like moments for the character, but if there's ever a puzzle, he'll just be like, oh, I don't understand it, but
Eric's usually his character is there mostly so he can build a character with us, but his character isn't like as proactive as the rest of us. Like his, and it's more like so Merlin is this character, and he's an NPC effectively that Eric just controls directly, right? He makes all the rolls for, right? And the idea is that this NPC is just kind of like a follower NPC, like Lydia from Skyrim, except for like actually useful because he's a support character that has healing spells and whatnot. But then he's kind of like a lore piece character. So if at any point somebody's like, hey, we need something explained, Merlin can then be like, well, as you see, back in this era, blah, 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 and now we have the backstory, right?
Yeah,
but if we don't care about the backstory, then we just move on. But yeah, he's there for exposition.
If you want to make him authentically like a computer game NPC, you have to have him just, Merlin, what do you think? And he's just banging repeatedly into a wall, or he's up on a roof somewhere.
He is blind, but he
has like a robe of eyes and like a staff that he can see through. It's really interesting. But he's like one of my favorite characters, and I did like name him after the great Merlin and all of that, but his name is
spelled differently though.
Yeah,
for
it's
originality.
spelled marginally differently. But yeah.
Ooh. Okay, I have a question. How do you feel about guns?
Oh. Yeah,
I like them up to a point. I think they should be up to the sort of early modern era. So we're talking flintlocks, matchlocks, wheel locks, those kind of things.
I have zero. Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and no further than that. The trouble is you run into a sort of clash of expectations. Like, so guns should be powerful. After all, they completely reshaped warfare.
Yeah.
But you don't want to unbalance your game.
No.
I agree.
So the way I tend to handle that is make them quite powerful, more powerful than crossbows, but inaccurate, and they take forever to load.
Interesting.
So,
see, my approach to it is that when you think about why they were more effective, it's like, think about what actually does more physical damage to you. Which one are you less likely to survive, a gunshot or an arrow shot?
Yeah.
It's an arrow shot. You are less likely to survive being hit by an arrow than you are being shot by a gun.
Depends on the bullets.
True. For most ammunition, though, right? Outside of like heavy ammunition, right? Like armor-piercing rounds, anti-tank fucking rounds, 50 caliber rounds, right? Anything massive, your odds of surviving are much better than just a regular arrow. And then if your arrow is like barbed or has a special tip, you're even more fucked. It's the advantages that guns had were the increased range and accuracy, and rate of fire, not the overall damage that they could do. And that's partially based on, if you hit the right spot, you're just dead. And that is the same with an arrow or a bullet. Get hit in the head, get hit in the heart, you're done. Right? So my particular approach would be to say that it is that the bullets themselves wouldn't necessarily be more damaging, but that the advantage strictly is greater range and accuracy.
So, well,
that's how personally I would prefer to approach it.
So the English armies were so powerful for such a long time because of the longbow, but you had to have like royal decree that everyone had to practice archery, every Sunday after church.
Yeah,
and that's
because it was a much higher skill.
That is
to get there.
Yeah, that is actually one of the fucking mistakes when it comes to the English law, because it wasn't like the longbows existed for thousands of years, but it was the English longbowmen that was so exceptional that made them so good.
Yeah. And the kind of wood we had access to, yew and oak, similar to the way the Mongol archers were at such a huge advantage because they learned how to make laminates out of horn and things, which made their very small bows that they could fire from horseback almost as powerful as regular bows. So but that was skill as well, but it's also the technology of the weapon. Then you had the crossbow. And the advantage of a crossbow was you didn't have to train a huge amount. Anyone could pick up a crossbow and fire it. And I think you see that reflected in D&D and the fact that even wizards and that can use light crossbows without any problem. But crossbows had their own issues, which made them inferior in many circumstances to a trained longbowman. But the advantage was that you could just dish them out. And anyone can figure
as
out
opposed
how to use them.
if you're talking about somebody who's trained, the skill gap, or the skill ceiling was much higher. It was an extreme skill gap, not just in terms of like just raw skill, but in terms of like your body being able to handle the draw weight of such a weapon, not only being able to just simply pull it back, but be able to do so and still fire accurately. It was a lot harder to train a longbowman.
And it was much easier to unstring and restring a longbow than it was a crossbow. So I think at Crecy there were, Genovese crossbowmen on the same side as the French, but it was raining, and because they couldn't easily unstring and restring the crossbows, their strings got damp, weren't as powerful. Whereas the English could take their bowstrings off, hide them in their hats, keep them warm, keep them dry, put on new ones, and then they were firing at full power. So then the gun comes along, and the gun has a ton of issues for a very long time.
Right.
And it's not something that anyone could just pick up and use straight away. for a very long time.
Right.
And the earlier smoothbore
Although it was
weapons,
significantly, it had the same learning curve effectively as a crossbow.
yeah, but more technical, more complicated, slower.
Yeah.
All of these issues. And certainly the smoothbore weapons were not accurate at all. You were talking 50 foot maybe with the pistols, 50 yards maybe with the muskets.
But of course, once we understand rifling, which is
once we get rifling later on,
it's probably the simplest aspect of a rifle or of any firearm is rifling. Once you understand the concept of rifling, no matter how good you are at building guns, every gun you build is going to be better just because of adding rifling.
Now the guns were more powerful at short range than the crossbows and longbows, and they could punch through the kind of heavy armor that people had. And they were firing.
They are better at breaking through steel.
Yeah,
and they wore light sheets of it.
Yeah, they were like 1/2-inch lead balls, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now the fatality rate,
muskets back then they were more like miniature cannons.
Yeah, the fatality rate may not have been quite as high as with arrows because it depends where you get hit. But if an arrow pierces an organ back then, before modern medicine, you're pretty much fucked.
That's true. Yeah, I should clarify. In terms of muskets, like we're talking, that would be a very high caliber round. Traditional flintlocks were much higher. In terms of like efficiency, we use much smaller rounds because we don't need something that extreme most of the time. I mean, the largest rounds you would typically use for a standard soldier would be like a 7.62, right? That would see something you would see out of like an AK-47 or of an equivalent rifle, and those would be just shy of a musket round.
Well, part of the point of modern lighter rounds is that you don't necessarily want to kill the enemy. You want to render them incapable, render them injured, and then force the enemy to spend a lot of resources, rescue, medevac, treatment, all of that.
Well, and also cleaner. You're partially right. What it was actually about is about cleaner wounds, right? There's a reason that certain types of weapons are illegal, and it's because the part of the reasons we have rules about warfare is we develop certain rules about like medicine on the field, right? And like not attacking medics, right? You're not supposed to attack medics on the field. And medics are typically, this wasn't always the case, but it's come about that medics, the job of a field medic is to address anyone's injuries, right? Once you've been shot, if you die, you're dead, right? And realistically, the point of a lethal weapon is to kill your opponent. But if they survive and are incapacitated, you do want to be able to revive them. And so you don't want weapons that, if on the chance that you do not kill them, you don't want them to be so badly mutilated that they won't recover anyways.
Yeah,
right.
And that's why
you want it to be one of those things where it either kills them or it hurts them and then incapacitated. And so a cleaner wound was really what's more important. Is not about it's about like if you got shot in the heart, you die. But if you got shot in the leg, your leg's not completely fucked.
Yeah, but that's what I was kind of coming to with the musket balls. I mean, right through to the American Civil War. Yeah, if you were hit and you weren't killed, odds are that limb was coming off.
You were fucked.
Yeah.
And part of that was due to medicine, but yeah.
A lot of that's to do with medicine, and obviously in a magical world, you've got magical healing, which throws everything off. But guns.
But in the case of an arrow, the lacerations that it leaves inside your body are much more severe and harder to, even with modern medicine, address and heal.
Yeah.
So I guess the point of that is, in a fantasy setting, realistically, an experienced ranger would be able to deal more precise and more meaningful damage than someone using a gun, right? Unless that gun was especially powerful. And that's one of the things like Eric and I have been trying to balance. Like my character starts out with a gun sword, right? It doesn't do a whole lot of damage and it's got its limitations. But it's fairly accurate. However, it doesn't do quite as much damage as our crossbowman. He does more damage, and he's just got a crossbow, right? But it is effective for taking a few pop shots at range. And if I stab somebody with it, I can also take an action take a bonus action to shoot them with it while I've got them stabbed with it.
Yeah,
right. It's cool, it's fun, but it's not too powerful. And the idea is because it's shooting a smaller round, it's not as doing quite as much damage.
Yeah,
Yeah,
in
like
order
the
for the bullet
pepper
to
box
even
thing.
exit the gun sword, because okay, so the barrel. Yeah, we're not gonna get into this. This is
It's
gonna
it's a
take too long.
complicated weapon.
But-
It's
Yeah.
got two
But yes,
mechanisms. So
I like guns in my games. I think you have to be cautious about it, and I think there's a lot to be learned from history, which is why I tend to gravitate towards the sort of early modern 16th,
the flintlock muskets, yeah.
1600s,
And I-
1700s.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and I would
But
say
no.
the thing about gun swords is like they're the same as what I said about bards. It's kind of up to the DM and the players to be creative with it and to, you know, to make it something that is fun as a interactive story element, as opposed to just, hey, I've got a gun, I'm powerful now. And even in the sense, like, for example, there have been plans discussed to implement like fully automatic weapons and like higher levels of technology at like higher levels in the campaign, because this campaign is Asheron's supposed to go on for a while, so we're supposed to get up to, you know, not only level 20 but multi-classing in other levels. And so the idea is, at the end, by the time we're supposed to be fighting this dark god, there will be like a period where we're kind of invincible until we go beat the world, right?
Well,
And at
so-
that
so-
point, we would have. Oh, sorry. That was just a clarifying point. So on the topic of the guns, we will have some guns, but the problem is that building automatic weapons requires expensive materials. You got to have a factory to make it. So that before I can even get there, there are all sorts of things that are required before I can even begin making them. And then once I do, the bullets are expensive. Making ammunition is expensive. Right. And so if I want to make like a 30-round clip for an AK-47, that's going to cost me a lot. And I could probably only have like 5 of those. And so unloading and additionally, 5.56 or 7.62 rounds aren't that effective against dragons. Sure, could I use that to mow down a small platoon of human soldiers? Yes. But against a dragon, it's kind of like throwing rocks. Right. I mean, it would do damage. Right. So there has to be like some middle ground. Okay. So now your comment on that.
So I was going to say, so multi-fire weapons are a lot older than a lot of people realize.
Yeah.
There were clockwork guns that would rotate a fresh barrel into place very early. There was the French mitrailleurs, which was just a whole bunch of muskets in series, and you would just kind of set them off, and it would go brrrr all the way across.
I know that one.
And then you'd spend the next day reloading it. There was the puckle gun.
That's a good one. Sorry.
There was the duck foot, which would fire all at once. There were pepper boxes. All kinds of stuff. The thing about the kind of sword guns or axe guns, whatever, they weren't particularly good guns and they weren't particularly good axes, but they fit a particular time in history. Because once you'd fired your gun, you probably wouldn't have time to reload before someone was on you. So it was good to have a melee weapon ready. But I like them. Another thing you can do to control them, in the Forgotten Realms, the smoke powder used to only be able to be made by gnomes who were particularly in the know alchemically, and in Iron Kingdoms, it used to be that only one particular guild knew how to make gunpowder.
It's a limited resource, hard to come by.
Yeah, they really tightly controlled it, and they charged a lot for it. And then in a science fiction game called SLA Industries, in that, there's a thing called bullet tax. So bullets are hugely expensive because the powers that be want you to fight the enemies in melee because it looks better on TV.
I mean, it depends. It depends.
That's a
there
great
are.
plot point.
I mean, Neo in the Matrix proves that gunfights can be extremely fun. All right, I'm just saying. Like, yeah, but yeah, I think that is like because like the dwarves in this universe, because they discovered gunpowder decades ago. They did in this universe. Actually, centuries ago, they discovered gunpowder. They did, and the humans are currently like in Acheron, like on the fucking path to like figuring out how
Keep
stuff
resetting
works.
themselves.
Yeah.
They keep resetting themselves.
Yeah,
'Cause
and
they're
the
fucking
humans
racist.
themselves have delved like there's so much shit. You guys should just everybody that's watching, go and watch the Fate of Acheron streams. Okay, they're great. Okay, you guys will understand this world.
Our next session should be this coming Sunday, so tomorrow morning. What I was gonna say, or tomorrow morning for me, tomorrow afternoon for you guys. I was gonna say, in terms of in terms of like utilizing scientific reasoning, right? For example, like taking advantage of natural gas, or mixing plants to create a medicine, right? Like you know, if you're using real world science
Sorry.
to do something in the game, how do you feel about that? Do you have concern? What are your concerns about it? What are your pros? Like, what are your favorite things about that? If you enjoy that, what's your take on?
So there's a lot of moving parts
Oh, shit.
to kind of work through here.
Right.
The presence
Because I
of
personally
magic.
enjoy that is the reason I bring it up. I enjoy like exploring what you can do like with the mechanics in terms of like what's the interface between science and magic.
Yeah, I enjoy it. Yeah, people applying reason to problems and coming up with solutions. Yeah, I dig that. But
I enjoy that equally as much as I enjoy like role playing as like the character and trying to make decisions as another person.
Yeah.
So a lot depends on the world setting in which you're playing, right? How common magic is. I think if magic was, real and powerful and present all over the place, then there's no reason really for civilization as a whole to necessarily dig into science and technology quite so much. What's the point of researching medicine when the local vicar can just pass his hands over you, mumble a couple of prayers,
and heal you? Yeah,
zip zap zorp, your legs grown back or whatever.
I know, but like there's certain so potions are really hard to make in D&D as far as I understand it. So wouldn't it be more prevalent to be able to grow a certain thing that is just able to, for example, like I
think you're arguing that like in order to facilitate some of their own magics, they would have to have a science of magic. Is what is what you're saying, Eric?
No, what I'm trying to say is that yes, magic exists, but technology is literally anything. That's what I'm trying to be. Yeah. And there could be magical technology.
So are you arguing that because they've worked out these spells in the first place, someone would have had a scientific mindset to even study spells?
Absolutely.
Well, that makes sense.
So in real history, magic used to be called science, right? Or an art.
Right.
And science used to be called an art.
Yeah, they thought math was witchcraft.
Yeah. That's what
only women practiced math.
Well, that's what brought an end to the Islamic Golden Age. One of the great mullahs decided that mathematics was evil and shouldn't be done, and so that kind of brought that.
You can't count things.
Yes,
it's not allowed.
I think adding and subtraction was fine, but multiplication is only for Allah.
It's only for Allah.
But
that's a good one. I like that. I'm gonna use that one in the future.
That's great.
Can
we clip
but
that?
Yeah, how prevalent is magic? Yeah, if every village today, well, less so these days, but if every village has a local priest, and in your fantasy world that local priest is able to cast spells,
healing,
and if magicians are common, then there is no need. And I think a lot of games don't fully think through the implications of this. Like,
I agree, actually. Like I've seen other stories like touch on this idea, like because I watch a ton of anime, and so I've seen plenty of isekais where main character gets teleported to another world or dies and reincarnated, whatever. And part of the idea is they're like, oh, their technology seems to be behind, but their magic seems to be pretty sophisticated, right? Like in particular in Overlord, right? They're like, oh, they're technologies of the Dark Ages, but they've got really advanced and really complex magic that's more interesting than anything I had, right? I think that's I like that being a subject as well. Although I do agree with Eric that to even have studied magic in the first place, you would have had to encounter a natural phenomenon that was incurred by magic and then somehow figure out how to repeat that phenomenon, similar to discovering fire or the wheel, right? And so a scientific mindset would be required in some extent. However, that then brings you to a point of how easy is it to cast magic? Because if magic is super easy to cast, then you would want to lean down into magic because science is harder,
In
Right.
D&D,
Although I
casting
would say that the
spells-
fruits of traditional science would probably be more meaningful, because
Well-
when you reflect that back over to magic, it would be more beneficial.
Yeah. So
But if you just go down the easy path, which makes sense for humans, yeah.
So if magicians are rare, if you have to have a particular bloodline, or it takes decades of training, or a particular natural aptitude or something, or if it's only available to the wealthy, like in the real world, first sons were raised to take over, so they were raised to be
Right.
knights and so on,
Mm.
and then second sons were sent to join the clergy, so
Right.
they would learn to read and write, and they would learn that. So if you've got that kind of setup, then you're not going to have many magicians. You're not going to have many clerics, because it's going to be very expensive to train them. Only a few people are able to do it. And in that situation, then science and technology
Makes a lot more sense.
makes a lot more sense, because it can democratize some of those capabilities. Okay,
Right.
so you got one guy in your army who can hurl 3 bolts of fire. Okay, whoop-de-doo. I have 100 men here with muskets.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, magic, in my opinion, in D&D, magic is extremely hard to cast, and in the Human Empire, they only have the clergy around, or like the basically, easiest way to explain it, they believe that the king is the god which they are worshipping. Most of the people, except for the clergy, they're the only ones that knows that. That's bullshit. But yeah, essentially, and one of the things that I love is that essentially the clergy barely has any power in Acheron. Don't get me wrong, they have like a pope and everything, and essentially like importance, but like the only reason why they even are important in Acheron, there's actually very few clerics in Acheron. There's like maybe 10,000, and there's like 15 to 20 million fucking humans. Maybe not even 10,000, maybe even lower. I don't even know the number. I haven't thought about it. It's
That wasn't
a very
actually
specific
decided.
question.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but I have thought about it because spellcasting, because the humanity in this uses magic. Like so any scientific progress is kind of like stunted, because why would we need this? Which is one of the things. And there's a
because of magic, right?
Yeah, but one of the characters that Will is going to meet in the next session, I can't really drop too much on it, is literally going to be a big science guy. That is essentially going to be like, and everybody's gonna,
nice.
yeah, and everybody's gonna look at him and be like, "Dude, shut the fuck up. We don't need this." Yeah, they're just gonna think he's crazy.
One of my character flaws is that my character is chaotic good. She's kind of like imagine a Tony Stark character, right? But she's kind of like not a rags to riches, but she started out poor, right? And then just kind of through study and through natural genius, right, and effort, mastered a bunch of different sciences and technologies, right? And then got bored, finds a portal to another world, and is like, fuck it, I'm hopping through. And just happened to have built a gun sword for fun as a plot, just happened to, because she was bored, right? So she brings that with her along with some tools. And now here she is trying to learn new laws of physics, which is magic, right?
Yeah.
But her flaw is that she's super ADHD, right? She might even be a little autistic. And so she will go off about shit that nobody understands for no reason, right? Because nobody in this world knows fuck about quantum mechanics.
Yeah.
Right? But that's the kind of person, that's the kind of character we're talking about, right? And so she's the antithesis in this scenario of like, I'm limited by my technology. So anything that my character should theoretically, and this is why I was asking about like scientific stuff, is one of the things that I'm trying to do is make sure that I don't try too hard to make this character who is driven by a pure motivation to just experiment. This is why they're chaotic, because they're just driven by a motivation to experiment. They don't really care what the reason is to experiment. If somebody says, hey, can you make a bomb? She'll be like, yes. Yes, let's make a bomb, right? Not because she wants to blow anything up, but she just wants to make a bomb. Can I make a bomb in this new world with magic? And can I make it better with magic, right? She just wants to experiment, right? But how do I mediate that within my own character and stay, not make myself too powerful?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the games master can always say, "Well, no, physics don't work quite that way in this world."
That's true. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
you can't get this particular material.
Yeah, I
or...
can absolutely do that. One of the things. Okay, so we're gonna move on to like.
It's just a
more
struggle
questions.
for sometimes, like when I'm trying to think up cool things that I want to do later. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do that. That would be a little too much, you know.
Okay, before we
Like,
move.
could I make a tank? Yes. Should I? No.
No, absolutely not.
No.
It would bog
Could
down.
I make drones? Yes, I could make flying drones. That would be easy. Should I? No.
Yeah. Okay.
Like,
so
canonically, should my character be able to do it? Yes. Could they? Should they? No.
So T-shirt historian. I don't know if he's a follower of yours. He might be.
I'm on a show with him in a couple of hours, so we have a regular show. So.
Yeah, that's good shit. I'm gonna try to do a weekday stream with you at some point. That'd be great. That sadly will not be a part of. Not because he can't. It's just that it would be really inappropriate for him to do.
Well,
that.
it depends on what time, especially if it's like
We'll see. I'm not committing to anything. I've got a lot on my plate.
Yeah, I was gonna say. It sounds like he's got a lot already set up. But I mean, if we do wanted to do another one of these episodes with you,
I definitely want to do it. Like just fucking hang out. There's a couple of more questions I have.
What's our
like
current time? I wasn't keeping track.
9:17. We've been doing it for a while. An hour and a half. Yeah, go on.
Hour and a half.
I've got another half hour, 45 minutes. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 2 hours sounds like a good length.
Yeah, I want to get into like a couple more questions, but like
we've kind of derailed a million times. I apologize.
All right, yeah. Historian messaged and he said, "Our solution for guns: the ingredients in the firearms have a chance of summoning a demon. I don't think that is very tangible. Every time you fire, the DM rolls a percentile dice, and when it happens, a demon shows up and ruins everyone's day. I like the risk versus the reward.
I assume that means
it's
Oh yeah. That was. I forget what part of that conversation was, but yeah, in terms of the ingredients thing, I think that's just because of where the ingredients came from. That's a plot related thing. So
yeah, absolutely.
But yeah,
I mean, one of my what do
you want to do? Because like it's a magic world. It could be whatever. You could make it like super based on reality or not based on reality at all, right? I could have my super scientific character could have walked into Acheron and up could have been down.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like, you know what I mean?
Okay, I've heard your hot takes on 1D&D, and I want to actually ask you that. But I want to ask you, do you know who Brendan Lee Mulligan is? Grim.
I am terrible with names, so I might be familiar with them, but I wouldn't remember.
All right. Then I'm not going to ask you anything about Brennan. He's just a DM.
Well, no, ask him. Pull a face. Pull a picture of him.
I will search.
Yeah, just search up Brendan Lee Mulligan. But you know Matthew Mercer, right? I don't think I need to like.
You're the host. You're supposed to pull that stuff up.
That's your job. You and me. Do you know
resources, man?
Do you know Matthew Mercer, Grim?
I know of Matt Mercer. I have tried to watch Critical Role a couple of times, but
I can't do it either. I mean, Brennan is my favorite DM, but
you don't care for Critical Role.
It's fine. And it's brought a lot of people to the hobby, which is good.
Right.
I mean,
but
yeah,
not your cup of tea.
But I think it's also had a lot of negative effects.
Yeah.
Interesting. Could you elaborate?
Ooh,
because I also have not watched much Roll20. I've seen clips, but I've not actually watched.
Right.
Or Critical Role. Sorry.
This is a highly produced, somewhat scripted show with professional voice actors in it.
Right.
And to me it doesn't present a true representation of what gaming is. Like,
right, it presents like a fantasized version of it.
Right, so they don't have the banter, they don't have the tangents, things don't grind to a halt for 15 minutes while everyone leafs through a book trying to remember a rule.
Oh, that reminds me of fucking just our campaign.
So
this is literally what happens all the time.
Yeah, so the stream game that I run is Tabletoppless, which is an adult show with a bunch of porn people, right? And sexy stuff happens as well as the rest of the game. But it's really important to me to present otherwise what role-playing is really like. So, we go off on tangents, we leave it room to breathe. We get stuck sometimes, we'll leaf through a book and can't find something, or we'll branch off into making Monty Python jokes or bad puns or
Right,
whatever
yeah.
I
else.
appreciate
Right?
that.
Because that is a true representation
That's
Of
Yes.
of what
D&D,
role playing is. And
yes.
right, and Critical Role, yeah, like I say, it's got all its good points, but it creates this unrealistic expectation of what it's like, how polished it
And
is,
maybe how it should how it should be.
yeah.
Okay.
And I think there,
yeah.
I think there are many different ways that it can be, and I wish there was more diversity in presentation rather than
Yeah.
Critical Role and a lot of imitators who are trying to do the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, as you're saying that, I'm kind of reminded of like the growing number of gatekeepers in D&D.
Yeah, there's so many of them. Like, don't get me wrong. There's nothing
Being
wrong
like, you
with
have to play
liking it.
D&D this way. This is the only way to play it.
Yeah, and if there's a certain addition tethered to it, then essentially they will just be like,
Yeah.
nah, you don't play it this way. Shut the fuck up. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't agree with a lot of what people say about 5e.
Yeah, and the other thing, it's like, right, my heart sinks a little bit every time I see this. But someone's setting up a streamed game and they say, we're holding casting, right? You're not holding casting. You're looking for players, right?
Yeah.
It just,
Yeah.
it gets my back up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just like to just.
Well, that's the thing. It's like they are holding casting.
I grabbed the closest people next to me and I said,
They should
"Let's hold a
be
D&D
looking for
game."
players, but they're holding casting. But,
Yeah.
but the funny thing is, like, it's not, for me, it's not
Stupid.
entirely
Stupid.
it's not entirely wrong to see your players as actors in a sense, but they are primarily players. You are in a sense like a conductor / narrator as a DM from my perspective. People say that the DM is God, and that's true, but the purpose of God is to be the narrator and, you know, and like the bumpers for the lanes that the players travel in, not necessarily I don't think like the absolute manipulator. I don't think the DM should absolutely control the plot in every aspect. I think, you know, linear is fine, but the DM should loosely just kind of be describing what's happening and the results of actions, as opposed to be dictating what you should and should not be doing.
Yeah, I think as a game designer as well as a games master, I think your job is to present a context in which stories happen rather than to directly tell a story. I think.
Right. As opposed to like arguing the rules and being like, you know, you guys have to do this and here are the reasons. You guide them into doing those things by saying, well, if you've decided to burn down the town, you are now on the wanted list for arson, terrorism, mass murder, right? Like natural consequences. You build the natural consequences of the world. You allow the players, the narrator is there to tell the players what kind of wall they've bumped into and how it felt. Did it feel good or did it not feel good?
Yeah,
You know?
it's to present a living reactive world to the actions of the characters.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do, but I get it. Yeah.
And some people get too focused on trying to create the story as opposed to create the world and let the story happen in the world.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question. What is your thoughts? Okay, so I want to like just get this one done with. Because I've heard really negative things, I've heard some positive things, and I mostly heard the shit about the OGL and stuff like that. But what is your thoughts on 1D&D so far? You don't have to answer.
Well, I can. I'm no longer attached to wizards in any way, shape, or form, so you know I'm free to speak. I think they handled this really badly. I think they've repeated the same mistakes they made during 4th edition. I can understand why they tried to do what they did from a corporate point of view, but I think it represents a huge misunderstanding of how the role-playing game industry works, how the community works, and why the open gaming license was such a boon to Dungeons and Dragons in the first place. So in trying to claw back what they see as their intellectual property, but that's another big question, and in trying to prevent another Pathfinder or other, you know, similar game rising up, I think they've made it all but inevitable that another competitor is going to rise up from what they've done.
They self-fulfilling prophecy sort of thing.
Yeah, it's tone deaf. They don't seem to understand
Now I'm
anything
kind of
about
mostly just listening to context here. Can somebody re-explain to me what 1D&D is? Like, what's significant about it?
1D&D is supposed to be the new edition, more like a kind of update to 5th edition. And then that's meant to be a kind of ongoing edition of D&D going forward into the future with nothing major changing. I doubt that'll be how it works out.
Is it supposed to be like a kind of fluctuating open house rule kind of?
Well, it will be constantly updating from Wizards, right? But the major thing.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but the major thing that got the community in an uproar was since the year 2000, when 3rd edition came in, they've had this thing called the Open Gaming License, where anybody can produce material for D&D or D&D alike games using rules that they release to the public.
Like this book.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah. So a whole bunch of third-party publishers produced a whole lot of content that Wizards didn't have the time, the inclination, the money, the risk, whatever to do.
Right. And also outsourcing it to people with ideas, like why not?
Yeah. And this worked really well.
It's one of the things that keeps Skyrim alive. Like Skyrim is still alive because of modding.
Like the modding.
Yeah.
It's exactly like the modding community. Except you're allowed to sell your stuff and get money back from it, right? So it encourages a lot of new game designers. It creates a whole sort of secondary sort of ecosystem. A lot of people like me who have various health problems and so on, we can't go out and get regular jobs. So if we write for games, we can make a bit of money on the side, and it helps sustain people. And it's also been really good for Dungeons and Dragons. Because
for the community as a whole, you got more content.
Yeah, because it supports that game, right? And the major money to be made in role playing is always on your core books. It's never on supporting material. So they've made a shit ton of money because all of this support stuff is out there, keeping D&D alive and interesting in people's minds, and sustaining sales of the main book, and increasingly D&D Beyond, the subscription service with the character sheets and all the rest of it. So moving into D&D, to 1D&D, sorry. Moving into that, they want to update the online tools. They've got this shiny new virtual tabletop they want to do. Yeah, they've spent a load of money on
my
it.
My headphones just died. Apparently they did not charge. Hold on. I have another set. Give me a second.
Take your time.
Should I keep talking?
Continue talking.
Well, no, he was curious, so.
Yeah. No. It's because I have delved into so do you know so there's a lot of YouTubers that I watch. There's the XP to level 3, one shot quips. The guy that does the memes, the guy that makes the memes.
I think I think he's going to be a while. So I'll finish explaining.
Mm-hmm.
So they've got the shiny new virtual tabletop that they want to bring out, and also they wanted to change the Open Gaming License. They wanted to make it much more restrictive. They wanted to claim rights over stuff that you'd created. They wanted to take money from people who made over certain amounts. They wanted to invalidate the old material. This was never what was intended. It was never what was planned. It was never what the Open Gaming License text was meant to imply would happen. And so, they've threatened a lot of people's livelihoods by doing this. They're trying to put the genie back in the bottle, and so that is what has pissed everyone off.
Because I agree. Because I've been reading up on the I.G.A.S recently, and I think that it's a fucking pathetic way of doing shit. I do. I don't know everything.
So to clarify, they're trying to bring everything back under their control and almost limit the creativity of the community.
Yeah, and take money.
That's frustrating.
From people. I mean, they were trying to stop streamed games, for example, in their original text, since they didn't want another Critical Role coming up, or rather, they would like to control any future Critical Role or similar. And
that's fucking toxic. I don't like that.
Yeah, so it was a whole bunch of problems. They've backed off for now, but I wouldn't let your guard down just yet.
I don't like that.
Okay,
because it still seems like they want to invalidate the old Open Gaming License, and there are other issues. So.
I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last question I'm able to ask for today. I believe. I believe in one of your videos you mentioned, and in this video you've also mentioned that you used to work for Wizard of the Coast. What was your employment like when you used to work there?
So I was a freelancer I worked on a couple of projects. One of the monster manuals, I forget which one. A couple of published adventures for 4th edition. One in particular was called Cross City Race, which was meant to showcase the extended challenge system that they had under 4th edition. And I worked on City of Stormreach, which was a tie-in with the D&D Online MMO. Eberron. That's the name of the setting I was trying to remember. Eberron.
Yes, I know that one. I actually know Eberron. Fair enough. You can continue. Sorry.
So yeah, I only worked for them freelance. It was a weird environment working for them freelance. They got a whole bunch of people together to work on Stormreach, and I was the only one who had played the MMO and knew anything really about it. So I don't really know why the other people were on the project. And
that's kind of frustrating when nobody else actually knows what they're what you're working on.
And then they just left us to kind of fight it out over who would do what section.
Reminds me of Mark Hamill in The Last Jedi, not gonna lie.
So
figure it out. It'll turn out well.
So I did what I could. But it was a very weird sort of environment. The monster manual stuff, I was largely left to my own devices on that. I think it was Monster Manual 3. Was that 3rd edition or 4th edition? I can't remember. I did Jewel Scarabs. I did variants on the Ogre Mage, and I did a couple of other things. I'm gonna need to look into
this after the stream is over for sure. Because this has me. I'm actually super pumped. I met somebody that is that used to work for Wizards. That's rare.
Only freelance. So,
yeah,
and they would never let me again. That bridge is burnt.
Oh really?
I've never met a bridge I didn't like better on fire.
Fair enough. Okay, so can I ask you a question then? I want to ask you the final question. That probably is going to be the final question of the stream. Am I getting this right? How
you wrote the question?
How did you get into D&D? Genuine question. How?
So I didn't start with Dungeons and Dragons, which is unusual. Has always been unusual, but it was even unusual back then. So, so my friends and I started on Fighting Fantasy, choose your own adventure books. And this is the infamous Were Tiger Orange book, which was for making up your own adventures and playing like a proper RPG. But the thing is, so what we'd do is that I would read the book and he would make the choices, and then we'd swap for when we did play.
Right.
So we were already kind of proto role playing before I ever knew what role playing was.
Right.
Then this came along, and I think there's some sections in this about other games, which is probably something you wouldn't see today in anyone's product. Recommending other games. Telling you what a role playing game is. More generally. And then I wanted to find out more about this, and I was super into Tolkien. Bearing in mind I was only 8 or 9 years old at the time, right?
Oh, I appreciate you so much right now.
And I would take a little radio and I would go up into the woods above my village.
Eric is a massive Tolkien nerd, by the way, just to clarify.
And I would listen to the BBC radio play of The Lord of the Rings on the radio, right? So I was super into that. So my dad took me to a little model shop in a nearby town called Basingstoke. And on one side of the model shop...
Wait, hold on. Did my headset turn off? Oh, shit. Whoa, okay, this is
oh my god, he's not the only one.
See, I talk too much, so I wear them out. That's what happens.
Nice. Oh my god, that's so funny that we both didn't fully charge our headsets.
It's the only
believe I am
time of
back
the
on
month
my
that this
actual
happens.
good mic
This
now.
is some bullshit. Seriously.
His headset
like,
also
what
lasts a
in
lot longer than
hell?
mine,
Like,
so
this thing, I only need to recharge once a month. It's actually dumb. And it happens today, of all
that's
days?
the advantage of wired headsets.
For fuck's sake!
They don't run out of power. All right,
Mine's
so we're back.
recharging.
This, not only this day, but it happens on this moment.
Okay, you
Yeah,
back?
I know the battery level is slow. Thank you. Okay, sorry, continue.
See,
Yeah,
you can
so-
charge yours while you're wearing them. Mine won't let me charge them
Yeah.
and wear them at the same time. It's stupid.
Fair
I
enough.
Fix it. Oh,
So yeah, my dad took me to this model shop, and on one side they had all the Airfix model kits and model railway shit, stuff like that, and on the other side they had role playing games. And I picked up Middle Earth Role Playing by Iron Crown Enterprises, and a board game, Battle Cars, which was a kind of knockoff of Car Wars by Games Workshop. And that was me. Not that I understood the rules properly, and we played it wrong, but we were playing it. And
right.
after that, I played Dragon Warriors, Twilight 2000. Fell in with some other gamers once I got to secondary school. So it wasn't until I was 11, like 3 years later, that I even encountered Dungeons and Dragons, and I didn't enjoy it very much, to be honest. I much preferred the other games, which we all played.
Fair enough. Respect.
See, my first session was kind of the same way. Like, I was kind of, to be fair, it was weird because my DM was a novice, and I had never played before, but everyone else was experienced, and so I kind of just got like hustled around without really being taught what was going on, right? And so I actually really did not like my first experience. I was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. I don't know how to play. And anytime there was like a free moment where we could kind of just do whatever, I was like, well, what do I do? And they're like, whatever you want. I'm like, well, what can I do? And they're like, well, I don't know. And it was just really weird trying to navigate, right? Like, again, because my DM was kind of a novice. If I'd had a more experienced DM, it might have been a different story. But yeah, I did not like my first experience with D&D either until I started doing like other like free role play stuff, just like in public gaming lobbies. There was actually an improv studio where you can just do like open like improv comedy on certain nights of the week. And I would do that for a little while. And so after doing that and getting more immersed in just like being in a role play mindset and just kind of, and especially from an improv standpoint, the next time I tried D&D from that point on, I had a lot more fun with it.
Yeah.
So,
of course, being the age I am, we didn't have the internet to start with. So I think the internet chat rooms and so on do present an opportunity to kind of ease yourself into it. Forum play, email play, chat, like you said, lobbies and things like that. It lets you get a kind of soft entry into things that you can't necessarily get. And also, I think it's easier to be more extroverted if it's just text or someone can't see you.
Yeah, there's a barrier there. Yeah,
it's less embarrassing, maybe.
Yeah.
Certainly frees people up. So,
well, yeah, and there's a security in how less personal it is, right? There's something more meaningful in the more personal interaction, but it's also easier. Like, the less meaningful it is, the easier it is, right? So the harder it is, the more meaningful it is, which, that's a transitive property. But that's the idea, is like it's easier to get people into it from a less formal experience, or I don't know if it's a formal, but in a less intimate experience where you're over the internet. Because it's less intimate, it's a lot easier to get comfortable with. And then if you're comfortable with your group, I would say in person is probably better. But
how did you get your start?
In person.
Okay, so so just to humor myself, sorry, to humor you guys. Sorry, wrong word of the phrase. I got started into D&D when I was 15. That's the first time I heard about it, actually. Yeah, I know. I even had internet when I was 15. So yeah, that's shocking as fuck. No, but
Is it though?
No.
Are you being sarcastic?
I don't suppose. But the thing that I'm thinking is that I don't remember the first time I heard about D&D, because when but I
You don't
re-
remember specifically?
No, I don't remember specifically, and I didn't get into D&D until a year or something ago, like more longer than a year, and half a
You've
year.
just
Like
known about it.
I played one game, one session, and that's it. One session with a DM that decided to be like, fuck this. I'm gonna just like, and he never DM'd the like. He's like he just did like one game and it was done, and then I basically. And then I was just like, what?
Wait, okay, so you're playing. You're saying you played this one game where the DM was kind of
no, he wasn't
like
bad.
a loose cannon.
He's not a bad guy, but he just never fucking held a session again. That's just the problem. It's
Gotcha.
Yeah, it was cursed actually. Fun fact. But essentially, what happened is that Nexo and I, we sat down. We did in like a VR world in VR chat. I know that sounds fucking weird. But we basically sat down in this world, and it was like a Dark Soul-made world, and we sat there and we talked for like 9 to 12 hours about like, okay, if I were to create a world like this, what would it be like? And that's when I created Asheron. That moment is when I created Asheron. Because, okay, so...
And then you started learning and researching and trying to figure out how to DM and
Yeah, but I'm really shit at like describing details and stuff, so I'm still learning. I am. Okay, so one of the things is that Will here is my co-writer to a book that I'm making.
More like an editor.
Editor, co-writer, whatever, however you pronounce it. But like, he's high up there. He's the only one that's gonna help me with my book. The only person I trust enough to basically give an opinion on that. Unless it's published. But essentially, I am going to do a lot of like work. I am in the near future.
Are you trying to ask him something?
No, not necessarily.
Not to rush you too much, but we're getting towards the end of time here.
Yeah. No, I don't think there's anything I have in particular to ask.
Oh, you're just kind of dropping that you're ready.
No, I'm just kind of dropping it for the viewers. Hold on a second. Let me see.
That's fair.
This
well, is there anything that you want to talk about, Grim?
Actually, yeah, we haven't asked you.
Yeah, I feel like we did this backwards because we asked you about you at the end. Traditionally you would do that at the beginning, but we got so distracted by whatever we got distracted by. We're not proper hosts at all.
Yeah, I guess I should pimp my stuff.
Oh yeah, do that, please. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm James.
I believe you talked about Tabletopless, right?
Desborough. I run a game with porn stars. Which
sounds hilarious. That sounds great.
On Wednesday nights.
I'm going to join. I'll go on your
Do you stream on Twitch or YouTube primarily, or
no? Because can't be naughty on there. We stream.
It's full. I see.
Full on.
Okay. Yeah. So okay. Is that on like your own site? Where do you put that?
We stream on ePlay, but you can check out tabletopless.org.
Gotcha. I'm searching that up after this game. I actually am too curious to go watch.
I didn't realize. I thought you meant like suggestive, not like
no.
It's not suggestive at all. No. Fair enough.
It's overt. It is
But
blatant.
you can also, as well as tipping for naughty stuff to happen, you can tip to affect the game. So you can provide the players with rerolls, either positive or negative. You can force
experienced role players.
Yeah. So we improvise, but we also try, apart from the sex, we try to present a realistic way in which we play.
Right. It's just with a twist.
Yeah. I have been working professionally in the game industry since
thrust, I imagine.
Since 1998. Roughly,
right?
Maybe a little bit before, depending what you consider professional. I wrote the Munchkin's Guide to Power Gaming with my co-writer Steve Mortimer, which begat the Munchkin card game later on, which they don't give me any money for, the bastards.
Wait! I need to ask, why the fuck is his name so familiar? Stephen Mortimer. I must have heard it somewhere. Sorry.
I don't know. He wrote a couple of things with me, and then he's been involved in software ever since, and not games. So I don't know. He used to be active on forums. Plays a lot of Warhammer. Might have run into him. I don't
You
know.
must have read his
I
name
don't know,
somewhere.
I don't know, but I swear I've heard his name. Anyway, continue.
Look him up later.
My website is post-mort.com. You can get ebooks and stuff there, and there's links to print books. I write my own systems, my own games. I've written stuff for 3rd edition, 4th edition, 5th edition.
What is the
I've
thing that you made for 5th edition, may I ask? Or just a generative book?
the latest thing is. Oh, do I actually? No, I don't have my copy handy. My latest thing was Whitechester, which is a horror setting set set in history, set just after the English Civil War, just after the restoration of Charles II. And a comet passes across the sky, and the dead rise from their graves. Most of them are put back into the ground because there's an awful lot of military veterans and armed people still around in this period, except
Right.
one city that falls, and they just wall up the city. So you got this city full of the undead. What the hell are we going to do with this? I know. Let's throw prisoners in there. So
Interesting.
So you are
I like
prisoners who get flung into the city, and then you have to survive. Maybe find out stuff that's been going on in there. Maybe try and clear out the undead, or come to some kind of understanding of what's going on. But yeah, it's
Maybe
a lot
escape.
cheaper to. Yeah, it's a lot cheaper to throw people in there than to transport them to the colonies. So, yeah, a lot of bad people end up in. Yeah, and that uses a variant set of 5th edition rules I wrote called Grimdark.
Interesting. Okay,
I'm definitively going to search on some of these things as they fascinate me very much.
Do you have any? Do you have like a Twitter or anything like that? That you're active on?
My Twitter is @Grimasaur. GRIMASAUR. It used to be Grimachew, but that account got banned.
Oof.
Because I told Will Wheaton off, and
no,
wait, really? You got banned for that?
Yeah. Well, so
it's what you
Twitter
said.
Twitter used to just ban you if you got a whole bunch of negative reports about your account. Of course, Will Wheaton had millions of supporters at the time.
Oh, so you got mass reported and you got banned. Yes, of course. I forgot about that.
And then I could not get hold of a human being at Twitter.
You should just ask Musk. He'll pay him $8. He'll reinstate your account.
Maybe.
Yeah, just literally just add him. Literally just add him and be like, "Yo, can you unban? You know, I forget what your full tag for your other account was, but you just ask him to unban it.
It was Grimachew. So.
Yeah, Grimachew. Yeah, ask him. Hey, can you unban Grimachew? And be like, he'll be like $8. You send him $8. he'll do it, man.
Yeah, but otherwise you can find the rest of my stuff via the post-mort site. I have a YouTube channel.
I'm gonna see if I can link that up in the description so that everybody on my channel.
Yeah, we can do that in post.
I spout nonsense there. Occasionally I write fiction. You can find my books on Amazon.
I can't buy from Amazon, so I'm probably going to see if I can purchase them somewhere else. I don't know yet.
You can also get them from lulu.com, and you can get most of my game books from lulu.com as well.
Okay, yeah,
perfect.
I'm lulu.com. Check them.
Yeah, I very occasionally do voice acting.
What would you say is the most notable thing you've done for voice acting?
I haven't done very much, and most of what I've done has never seen the light of day. So I think the only thing I've done that actually came out was a voiceover for some sort of cheap Chinese room vapor thing to make the air more breathable.
Fair enough.
Interesting.
They wanted a trustworthy English accent, and yeah, they paid me like $50 for
to say something.
Lines. So it was, I'd take the money.
Fair enough. Well, yeah, I wasn't necessarily thinking you have done like a famous line, but I was, I was just wondering, what kinds of things you've done.
Yeah,
like,
I am available.
Nice.
I'm tempted to have you join the or I join for like a session, just be like an evil character in the group.
Oh yeah, if you wanted to join in as an NPC or something, yeah,
strike you as evil.
Yeah.
If I you could be an antagonist, or you could be Because like I don't know, antagonists fit more as one-shot NPCs, right?
True.
You know, if you wanted to make you a tavern guy, you'd probably be more reoccurring.
Yeah.
We want to force you into that kind of commitment, but it would be fun for you to be like, or maybe a temporary hero who comes and helps us out, right? Maybe you throw us and a couple other, or you throw yourself and maybe a couple of friends. You bring them in as temporary party members for something.
Yeah,
Who
we'd love
knows?
that. We'd love that. I'd love that. And, like, as for
That'd be
DM,
fun.
I just love throwing characters in whenever I can. Not too many, obviously, but like
Yeah, he
one-
has a limit, but
yeah.
cameos are fun though. Cameos.
So,
Cameos are super fun.
Was there any sort of last question or anything you want to ask me? Otherwise,
Yeah. Eric, you got anything else? We're getting towards the end of time here.
Anything. I mean, I guess I could ask this one. This one is not too long. What is your favorite edition in D&D?
Probably third.
I
Third
heard many
edition.
people say 3.5 when it comes to this one.
Well, by third I mean the whole
Oh,
Yeah,
okay, so you
everything
mean
in
the
third.
entire... Fair enough. Yeah, but...
3.5 and Pathfinder first edition. I all kind of it's all the same thing. The level of character customization and
It's
the
crazy.
fact that you could customize your character's skills and so on, that multi-classing was so easy to do, just that depth of character customization and so on that you could do appealed to me, because I like to have individual characters that aren't necessarily quite like everyone else's. And
right.
fourth edition was really cookie cutter in a lot of ways, and fifth edition still is in a lot of ways. So for me, the customizability of third edition just made it superior for me.
Yeah.
I suppose that's something I understand less because I'm really only familiar with 5th edition. I played a little bit of 4th edition, but that was like, I think only the first and second game I played. And those were early on before I was really into D&D.
Fourth was a really different thing.
Anyways, everybody, go and check out Grimm's channel. The same with Will's.
Thank you. Total Meltdown. YouTube and Twitch.
Yeah. And
but mostly check out Grimm. I'll be around. Check out Grimm.
Yeah, Will is literally a part of my channel. He's like one of the biggest fucking competitors.
I'm a known character. Focus on Grimm. Go
focus on Grimm. So literally, I'm gonna leave the link down to Grimm's fucking channel, Grimm Gym. Okay, so go down into the description, click on his channel, and watch some of his videos. And also, if you listened, actually go and watch some of his stuff. Grimm, it has been a pleasure to have you. I hope that we can have you again at some point. But other than that, dude, I hope to see you around. Yeah, everybody, have a good night.
Yeah. Appreciate you joining us.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm gonna end the stream right now.